I'm so happy the Eagles, Deshaun Watson said no to them, or the Eagles decided thanks, but no thanks. I don't know how the full story went. John does. But overall, I'm just glad the Eagles did not even go near that hornet's nest. That's what Deshaun Watson is. He is.
Oh, they wanted to go near it though. That's the problem.
Yeah, it's a
better to be lucky than good.
Yeah, there's a big hornet's nest in there, and they're all coming out ready to sting you. And no, I'm just glad the Eagles did not tap into that. I mean, they did obviously at one point, but who knows if they found out more information or not. I don't think we'll ever know the full story.
Right.
Mag guys, McMullen and McDonald here with you on Birds 365. We got a bud jumping in with us. He covers the entire NFL for CBSSports.com. When we ask, he gives a helping hand here on the JAKIB Media channels. Yeah, mostly Birds 365, but the other shows want to get him on too and go him on to when they can. But we've got his services with us today. Jeff Kerr, good enough to jump aboard. JK, how you doing, bud?
Pretty good, Jody. I decided to wake up and choose violence by ranking the top 10 defensive players ever.
Yeah, we saw that. I predicted you're number one without looking, Jeff.
Well, I got roasted because how can I omit J.J. Watt? I'm like, I only remember the last time J.J. Watt was an All-Pro, and I actually had to look it up. It was 2018, but I love J.J. Watt. He's a Hall of Famer, but Texans fans decided to call me recency bias because of Aaron Donald. I'm like, so Aaron Donald's not great? Is that what you're saying?
Well, they're both recency bias. They're both great. I was going to bring up JJ. JJ, yeah, people forget about JJ. I think 3 consecutive defensive players of the year award. He was a great player. I think in this generation, here's my thing, and Clark Judge and I, we could do it. If we had Clark on, Jody, we could do a 6-hour show on this. I don't know how you compare eras in the NFL. Yeah. So, like, I look at it in this era, and I look at Aaron Donald and J.J. Watt, and those are the 2 guys. And then you have Reggie and Bruce Smith and LT. And then you go back to the Joe Green, Bob Lilly, Alan Page, those guys, all Deacon Jones, would maybe be at the top of the list. I don't know how you compare those guys. And then you go way back to the Bednareks of the world, which we talked to Clark, you and I, Jody, about Otto Graham. Nobody talks about Otto Graham as one of the best quarterbacks, but he was. And Jody, I've given you my thought process on the time machine. And I always use Wilt Chamberlain because you always have these people. Well, Wilt played against a bunch of small guys, and if you put him here, he wouldn't be able to do this. And I always say, why does the time machine work one way? Wilt's got to come forward with this magic time machine, but Michael Jordan and LeBron James, they don't have to go back. What if they had to go back?
Well, here's one too. Don Hudson. Yeah. Don Hudson might be the greatest receiver of all time, and they argue, well, he played against plumbers. I'm like, so we take that away from him? He wouldn't be great today?
Yeah, well, my theory is, look, they dominated in their era, which there were a lot of things they had to go through. There wasn't as much knowledge on nutrition and weight training. The travel wasn't easy. In some sports, you had to get a job in the off season, including the NFL. It was a different era, but they dominated. They were the best in that era. So what I'm saying is, if you put the modern people in the magic time machine and put them with all those, they don't get to work out. They don't have the chefs, the personal chefs. They have the crappy travel. They don't make the money. They're not going to be Wilt Chamberlain or Chuck Bednarik. So that's why they're great, because they dominated in their era. That's my little time machine theory.
All right. For those of you who don't have your computer in front of you, don't have Jeff's list, I'm going to run them down real quickly, and then I'm going to ask you just one question, Jeff. At number 10, he's got Ronnie Lott. Number 9, Rod Woodson. Number 8, Bruce Smith. Number 7, Dick Butkus. Number 6, Deacon Jones. Number 5, scrolling, Aaron Donald. That's why you did the list, because Aaron Donald just got paid the most ever for a player. Where does he fall into the list? You got him at 5. I kind of like it. Number 4, Deion Sanders. Number 3, Ray Lewis. Number 2, Lawrence Taylor, and number 1, Reggie White. First things first, like your list. You got 10 of the greatest defensive players ever, maybe the 10 greatest ever. Yeah, one different here or there. So if you get 9 out of 10, that's pretty damn good by you, Kerr.
I wanted to put Alan Page and Mean Joe Green on it. I just didn't have room.
Right. Well, you got to draw the line somewhere. You drew it at 10. Those are the 10 you came up with. They're 10 all-time greats. Here's my only issue, and this is not going to go over well here on Birds 365. Lawrence Taylor redefined defense in the National Football League.
How dare you, Jody?
No linebacker had ever made a difference on the field at going up the field the way that Lawrence Taylor did. And his ability to get to the quarterback had never been done by a linebacker before. Reggie White may have surpassed Deacon Jones, who you rightfully have on this list, but he played the same position and did the same things that Deacon Jones did. He just took it to another level. Lawrence Taylor did things that no one had ever done before, and you could almost argue he did things that no one has ever done since. From the position that he played, Lawrence Taylor's got to be number 1 on your list. Reggie White, number 2. I got no problems with you having him 1 and 2. I just think it's got to be 1 and 2 rather than 2 and 1.
Because I used to watch a bunch of NFL films when I was younger. And I remember specifically Joe Gibbs created the H-back and the 2 tight end set to stop Lawrence Taylor. And he still couldn't stop Lawrence Taylor. If Lawrence Taylor didn't get injured or have that, like those first 10 years of Lawrence Taylor's career, I don't think anyone's ever going to beat for a defensive player. Maybe Aaron Donald might do it, but if you look at that, you take away those final 3 years, Lawrence Taylor, clearly number 1. It's just, he got injured, and it's a shame. He only lasted 13 years in the league. I just could not ignore Reggie. 124 sacks in 121 games with the Eagles. That's over a sack per game. The only one that's close to doing that right now is TJ Watt. That's it. JJ Watt in his prime definitely was on his way to doing it. The injuries caught up with him. But just Reggie White being dominant his entire career. I don't know why he ever came back to the Carolina Panthers because he could have left on top, Defensive Player of the Year at 37, the whole kit and caboodle. But my always thing with Reggie White was everybody tries to remember him with the Packers because he won the Super Bowl and all that. He was 10 times the player with the Eagles. And that's how I'll always remember Reggie White, just playing dominant throughout his career.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to complain about Reggie White. I'm with Jody. I would put LT number 1, but that's probably biased towards I've heard Parcells talk about him, and that kind of swayed me. And obviously, he's going to be in the corner of his guy, but I do think that's kind of my definition. I go back to Wilt, and Jody gave a good example. When they change the game for you, that's why I was talking about Moss. When they change the game for you and they start playing different ways to stop you, that tells you you're a little bit different. And not that they didn't, people tried to chip Reggie all the time, but, as you mentioned with Joe Gibbs there, Jeff, they're trying to come up with new ways. For the first time in my life, I saw this weird bracket coverage where a linebacker was underneath. You had the corner on Moss. You had a linebacker underneath, and you had the safety playing like cover 2, but way outside the numbers to stop Randy. Never saw it before. I don't think, it's probably been used since, but they did it for him. And then you had Green Bay draft in the 1 year they drafted 4 corners just to try to stop Randy Moss. Those are the type of players. And then when the production matches that, which it did with Wilt and Lawrence Taylor, that's why I would put LT.
I thought Jim Johnson had the most unique way of stopping Randy Moss. No, we're not going to stop him. What we're going to do is you are not beating us for those 30, 40-yard plays. You can catch anything you want underneath. And I was watching Eagles-Vikings game from 2004. It was like, okay, let him catch the 7-8-yard pass. We'll be there to tackle him. We'll be there to bring him down. And to their credit, they did. I think Moss got a touchdown really late in that game, but the game was already decided. But he had like 9 catches for like 85 yards and a touchdown. And John Madden said it. Well, that's not what Randy Moss gets paid to do, unfortunately. And he gave credit to Jim Johnson for stopping him. And T.O. made the big play that game, the 40-yard touchdown catch, and that's what Randy Moss did seemingly every single week.
Yeah. And when they change the rules for you, then when you really know, and that's the Bob Gibsons of the world and the Wilts. When they change the rules, then okay, that guy's pretty good. That guy's pretty good.
Start redesigning the field of play because one guy is too dominant over all the others. They never quite did that for Lawrence Taylor, but still, nobody has done it the way that he did it, and I'll argue nobody has done it since. I do want to talk to you. Tied Lawrence Taylor into something John and I discussed in the first segment, and that's demons. You mentioned that Taylor got hurt. He also had major issues off the field of play, drug use and everything else. Deshaun Watson has issues. He's got his demons. Apparently, they have to do with massages and happy endings. John and I were talking about the fact that the Eagles may have dodged a bullet with the fact that they didn't acquire Deshaun Watson. So we can talk about Jalen Hurts looking great in the limited scope that guys like John McMullen can go down and watch him practice for about 20 minutes today. But we take Nick Sirianni at his word that he looks much improved. How much of a plus is it with the Eagles, Jeff Kerr, that we don't have to worry about any of that? We can just analyze, is Jalen Hurts improved enough this year, rather than, can our quarterback stay out of jail this year? Our $230 million quarterback stay out of jail this year?
I'm so happy the Eagles, Deshaun Watson said no to them, or the Eagles decided thanks, but no thanks. I don't know how the full story went. John does. But overall, I'm just glad the Eagles did not even go near that hornet's nest. That's what Deshaun Watson is. He is.
Oh, they wanted to go near it, though. That's the problem.
Yeah, it's
better to be lucky than good.
Yeah, there's a big hornet's nest in there, and they're all coming out ready to sting you. And no, I'm just glad the Eagles did not tap into that. I mean, they did obviously at one point, but who knows if they found out more information or not. I don't think we'll ever know the full story. But
I get a kick out of these NFL teams, and we were talking about Houston a little bit, and Cleveland saying we did our due diligence. Did you? Because Jenny Brentis, and I said Washington Post, it's New York Times, so I want to make that correction. Jenny works for the New York Times now, but she's a great reporter, but she doesn't have the sources that these security directors have. With the context they have with prosecutors. That's how you get jobs in the NFL as a security director. Everybody knows Big Dom here. The guy in Houston.
Dom just got promoted, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He's assistant to the GM as well. So congratulations, Dom. But the guy in Houston used to work for the Secret Service. So all these guys have contacts, and they usually with local law enforcement, and they have a lot of sort of ins, and they get all the whispers. And 66, I mean, we 23, I shook my head at. Now we're up to 66, and some of them had no issues, and some of them were willing to do it, and some of them aren't mad at Deshaun Watson, probably because he paid them well. But if you're an NFL team, and this is how I described it to Jody, forget about the legal entanglements. Why do you want this guy making those decisions off the field? I get a kick out of Cleveland. Remember the quote, "We need an adult in the room," when they were ripping Baker Mayfield? This is your adult? I mean, it's embarrassing.
The adults they wanted in the room, they're not adults either. Kevin Stefanski, Andrew Berry, because they just pretty much said, yeah, but we don't really care. It's almost like they spit in your face. We don't care what he's done or allegedly done.
Well, and I would say that's a Jimmy Haslam decision.
True.
So I'm not going to. You can blame Andrew, and people will, and Kevin Stefanski because he's the coach. But same thing here. If Deshaun Watson would have been here, it would have been a Jeffrey Lurie decision, period.
But,
that was a Jimmy Haslam decision. So he deserves all the blame, and then it kind of trickles down from there.
Right, because he's the guy who okayed $230 million guaranteed Barry may have put it out there. He doesn't get to put it out there if the owner doesn't okay it to begin with.
Yeah.
So Johnny Mac is absolutely right about that. All right, let me we talked about assistant general managers advance from security positions. I'm going to make you guys assistant general managers for the Philadelphia Eagles. I saw not one, two different reports that the Baltimore Ravens are looking to add a veteran pass rusher. Maybe through free agency. They've had all off season with a bunch of the guys that are still out there. And there are better names at defensive end than there are at safety, where the Eagles are looking to add a veteran. But still, even if they don't get a veteran free agent pass rusher, edge guy, let me run this trade by you. Who says no to this trade if it's out there on the table? Chuck Clark for Derek Barnett. Ravens have a little excess at safety. They're looking for a veteran pass rusher. I think the Eagles could use an upgrade at safety, and I think they're okay at the edge position. Derek Barnett for Chuck Clark. Who says yes? Who says no? Kerr, you first.
So I'll play the Ravens GM. No, I keep Chuck Clark because you can, Mike McDonald's defense, you can play three safeties. You can line Chuck Clark in the box. You can play him with Kyle Hamilton. You can use him in multiple formations. I know they need a veteran pass rusher. They got Calais Campbell back, but I know they need somebody else. I'd be like, well, there are a couple guys on the market I think that are better than taking Derek Barnett and his more penalties and sacks in his career. It's maybe if they offered, it would never happen, but I'd be like, what about Brandon Graham? Then again, this would be me as the Ravens GM. I would see if the Eagles would want to get rid of Brandon Graham. They don't, but you got to check. So, no, I feel like I can get someone better on the market. I keep Chuck Clark.
I mean, everything depends on the player. I do know, look, Eagles fans would be thrilled because they want Derek Barnett out the door. As you mentioned, more penalties than sacks. Jody's raising his hand. But I think defensive end or edge rusher is a more valuable position than safety. So Baltimore likes the player. Yeah, I think it would make some sense. I think, they don't need the safety. I hear what you're saying. A lot of people talk about using the big nickel and the three safeties, and a lot of people do it, but not for a big amount of time. So, maybe 10% of the snaps. So I don't think you're going to see a base defense with three safeties. Although who knows, Chuck Clark could be a glorified linebacker, or maybe Kyle Hamilton is the most versatile player in the world. We'll see how that shakes out. I think it makes some sense, match up. Same thing with Jalen Reagor, but it all depends because the Ravens need a receiver as well. It all depends if they like the player. And maybe they think Eric DeCosta is the same as the average Eagles fan and says, I don't want that guy. I don't want your trash. I would think of that more than, but I think from a perspective Jody brings up, I think it makes sense. The question, Deep Board's going to be out. Does he have anything left? Maybe go out and get him. I don't know if he's got anything left. There's probably more edge rushers on the market, which kind of hurts things probably for the Eagles.
My guy, he's not a veteran, but he's one of those young ascending players, Rasheem Green. I really like that signing for the Texans. I think he's due to have a big year. Yeah,
I mean, and you mentioned Brandon. The problem with Brandon, and by the way, he's still valuable to this team, but he's 34 years old and he's coming off an Achilles and he makes a lot of money. I don't think that would be nearly as valuable, even though he's a better player than a Derek Barnett, just because of all those issues. And I don't know, JPP's still out there, I think.
Yeah, he's still out there. Ndamukong Suh's still out there. You can kind of line him up on the edge of it at times. I don't think he's that type of player anymore, but there are ways you can do it.
Suh's a tackle. He's not an edge at this stage in his career. All right, one last question on this. And again, for both you guys, if you're Eric DeCosta, making your specific, since you're advising Eric DeCosta, Eagles offer you your choice of Barnett or Reagor. They want Chuck Clark. You're willing to move Chuck Clark. You had the choice of the two. If you're Baltimore, which one would you take, Jeff?
John, do you want to take it or you want me to take it?
Well, Jody said Jeff, but I'll jump in.
Oh,
I'd say both. I'd say both. I want both. How about that?
All right, then if you're the Eagles, would you give them both?
I would.
I would.
Why not? I would.
I'd
ask for both.
I'd take a chance on Jalen Reagor. I mean, I think he could be the number 2, number 3 for Baltimore easily. Right now you got James Proche. That's pretty much it outside of Rashad Bateman. I think Reagor really needs to change the scenery. Just needs to.
So do I.
Yeah, recharge batteries.
I don't know if you can count on him if you're Baltimore. In fact, I do know you can't count on him. I mean, you might want to bring in the reclamation project and say, who knows, let's roll the dice. But I don't think you can say we need a number 2 or a number 3 receiver, and that's going to be Jalen Reagor. You cross your fingers. But yeah, I'd ask for both if I were the Ravens.
I think the Ravens would utilize his speed a lot more. I think not saying he would be Hollywood Brown, but I think you can just say, hey, run as fast as you can down the field. Lamar will get you the ball.
I agree with you. He needs a change of scenery. If anything is ever going to click for Jalen Reagor, it's going to be outside of Philadelphia. So that part I agree with. After watching him, I can't imagine it, but there's been other guys. I mean, you talked about it again, Brandon Graham. When I asked him about Derek Barnett, as a matter of fact, and he brought up again, everybody wanted me out of here. Everybody, they were running him out of town on a rail. He stinks. He's this. He's not Earl Thomas. He's not JPP. And now he's, if Kelsey wasn't running, he'd be the mayor of the city. Everybody loves him. So things can turn around. But for Jalen, I think it's got to be probably in another city.
John, I want to ask you this. Who's had a better career, Brandon Graham or JPP?
BG.
Yeah,
BG.
I agree with that.
Now, part of it is JPP's fireworks accident.
4th of July.
Yeah. I mean, they're all great. They were all great players, all great picks. I think so. Earl's going to the Hall of Fame, but I think it's ironic that BG outlasted them all. Well,
JPP still might land somewhere, but
I mean, with his original team.
That's true.
Yeah,
okay, I see where you're going.
Yeah.
Earl Thomas was a disaster with the Ravens, by the way. I couldn't believe how much he fell as a player and everything else that happened with him. But you're right, John. Like, he's going to the Hall of Fame. He's that type of generational player.
All right, let me run this one by you guys. And again, I running the risk of ticking off Eagle fans here. The Denver Broncos officially, they got to go through the formalities of getting clearance from 31 owners, and there's a process to go through, but agreed in principle to sell the team for $4.65 billion. We're not talking millions here, folks. $1 billion for the Denver Broncos, 4.65. Jeff Lurie this week named Julian Lurie the head of, what is it, analytics, advanced security, beacon,
business and football strategy, I believe.
Football strategy. All right.
Well, he's got an official title, John. I didn't even see it in the press release when they announced.
No, he wasn't on the press release, but he's got his own office, and as you know, I was told by somebody in the organization, Julian doesn't have to worry about titles.
No.
You know what they should call him? Simba or Future King, because that's pretty much what he is.
Yeah.
And by the way, I brought this up on WIP last night, just off the top of my head stuff. What do you think Julian Lurie's salary is? Does he even get a salary? Does he walk into the owner's office and say, "Hey, can you write me a check for $200,000 here? I need to do some stuff." How does that work?
I think they have formalized his role a little bit, so he does probably get a salary, and it's probably less than it should be for somebody in a similar position. You know how that works. But same thing with the title. Julian doesn't have to worry about his salary. He doesn't have to worry.
$3 billion. I think it'll be okay.
Yeah, you and I see it the exact same way, John. But here's where it may divert just a little bit. If you're Jeff Lurie, you've been owning the Eagles for decades now. You achieved what you needed to achieve, which was a parade and a championship and the biggest party here in Philadelphia sports, and will probably be going forward as well. The Eagles, for me, are of higher value standing in the league, fan base, everything else. Philadelphia market size compared to Denver market size. They're a bigger valued franchise than the Denver Broncos. And the Denver Broncos just sold for $4.65 million. So nice little round number of $5 billion.
The B.
With a B, $1 billion. If you're Jeff Lurie, are you at least intrigued to say, I could just get out while the getting's good, and I'd only have $5 billion to get out with? Julian, sorry, you're going to have to go find yourself a gig. I'm going to take the money and run. Any chance Jeff Lurie is at least tempted by this?
I don't think so, but I would be. I don't want to give anything to my snot-nosed kids. I want to take my $5 billion and go live my best life. And I'm not. I'm joking, obviously. But now he's shown no indication that he wants to sell the organization. And by the way, Eagles fans should be very happy about that. I said about the Denver Broncos, because Josh Harris was in that. Josh might have been the runner-up. You don't want Josh Harris. I don't know anything about this ownership group, but Denver didn't want Josh Harris. In Jeffrey's case, I think I think you did something about this recently, Jeff. I think a lot of Eagles fans, modern Eagles fans, younger Eagles fans, don't realize how bad this organization was pre-Jeffrey Lurie. And now they've turned into this sort of stable. Yeah, they have their ups and downs. They have their soap operas. They've had a million soap operas, but their success pre-Jeffrey Lurie compared to post-Jeffrey Lurie, staggering. And I don't think a lot of younger fans realize how bad it was at certain points.
When I talk to 49ers people, especially fans, they always say, man, I miss Eddie DeBartolo. I miss that family. I miss everything they've done for our franchise. It's such a different atmosphere. It's someday Eagles fans are going to miss Jeffrey Lurie unless Julian keeps this up or makes it better. But the proof's in the pudding. The Eagles win titles. They win NFC East titles. They make playoff appearances. There was a time when the Eagles, if they had a winning season, you celebrated. I mean, all you got to do is watch a Dick Vermeil special or anything on Leonard Toast to realize how bad the Philadelphia Eagles were at one point. And I grew up, all I remember is Jeffrey Lurie. I remember when Jeffrey Lurie bought the team. I remember when he transformed the team, and Andy Reid had a lot to do with that, but that's part of the stability he brought to the franchise. So, and I'll say this, if I am the Philadelphia Eagles, you would have to just force me out of the chair. You'd have to kick me out of the stadium and lock the door and make sure I never come back, because I would never give them up. Or any NFL team, I'd never give it up. That's your dream.
Yeah, but everybody sells at some point. Every team in professional sports has been sold at some point. There are no original owners left. You say once you get your hands on it, you're never going to move it. Everybody.
Yeah, I would move it. I would move it, but I just want the money.
If I have a snot-nosed kid, he can move it.
Yeah. Well, you don't. Yeah. I'm not saying. I don't want. Julian's probably a great guy. I don't know Julian, but I'm a Yankees guy. Everybody knows that. For years we know the soap opera with George Steinbrenner, but man, that guy wanted to win. I can't say the same about his kids. So
they're not as motivated as the boss was.
John, right now, they're only the fourth team in the last 80 years to win 40 of their first 55 games. You should be jumping up and down.
Yeah, I didn't see that coming. Their rotation came out of nowhere. I thought they had a crappy rotation. All of a sudden, it's the best rotation in baseball. Who knows?
Let's see if Nestor Cortez can keep
Nasty
it up.
Nestor. There you
go. All right, Jeff Kerr, you're not heading down to spend quality time on the grass with John McMullen, but I need your opinion. The Eagles decided this offseason to double down on what they did last year, where they believed less is more. Now they believe less is even more, I guess, because it looks like at least time dedicated and the type of workouts they're going through in the limited amount of time they're using. They got this right. That we're going to look back at them at the end of the season and go, damn, they were ahead of the curve on this over everybody else in the National Football League. Or are we going to be able to go, no, you didn't prove anything. Your injuries were what your injuries were. You got out of the gate slow. How is less is more going to work out for the Eagles this year?
The old saying is what? Work smarter, not harder. I feel like the Eagles are doing that approach. It's, okay, yeah, we're not going to practice as much. We're going to rest these bodies up. We'll drive these guys when we have to in the short amount of time that we do. It worked for them last year. And I think it'll work this year too because they're still a young team. They got a lot of young players. I think if you're an older team, yeah, you need to practice less. But I think it's funny how we don't have to hear soft tissue injuries anymore. It was nice to not hear that for a year or so. And I feel bad for Doug Pearson in Jacksonville if all these guys keep getting hurt and then Jeff McClain finds his way down to I don't even know what to say.
Jeff's not going to Jacksonville.
Well, it would be hilarious though if he was, hey Doug, I got soft tissue injury. Get out of my
Yeah, Jeff is obsessed with soft tissue injuries. That's Arsh Denoda. He's a superstar. He's the one responsible for that. The Eagles do love Arsh Denoda. He's their chief medical officer, and I think he's got more power than people realize. I think he is the one behind all of this, to be honest.
And you know what? It took him a long time to get to this point, but hey, when it's working. I mean, what is it? You fail repeatedly, you're eventually going to have success. That's usually at least the saying I was talking about.
Yeah, I think I'm going back to the same thing I said about Deshaun Watson. It's better to be lucky than good. Yeah.
And, oh, by the way, maybe the Eagles were lucky that Arch Denoda was not cherry-picked by the Houston Texans, because he might have been able to solve the soft tissue issues that Deshaun Watson had.
Oh, we don't want to go there.
Yeah.
All right, that's a wrap. We can call it a day after that one. Jeff Kerr, always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you very much for hopping on. We'll get you on again either late next week or
thanks
weekend.
for being malleable, Jeff, like Nick Sirianni. Going back and forth.
Now you're going malleable. I'm not going to mention Deshaun Watson's name as you use the word malleable, John McMullen. Well, I didn't say that. You said malleable, not me.
Jeff was malleable in a good way, not a bad way. He's not getting hotel rooms.
Guys, what did Jeff Lurie call Nate Sudfeld? I'm trying to remember the
unstoppable.
Unstoppable.
Unstoppable Nate Sudfeld.
Unstoppable Jeff Kerr. I'll be the third string quarterback for this franchise.
By the way, is Sudfeld still on the 49ers roster again this year? I gotta look that one up.
Yeah, he's still quarterback.
Sudsy. Yeah, he's still on the
He's still on the 49er roster. Yeah, I guess he's still unstoppable. All right, Unstoppable Jeff Kerr, thank you very much for coming on with us. Appreciate it, bud.
Yeah, sounds great. Thanks for having me on, guys.